Welcome to Quality of Life Matters, the official podcast of the International Society for Quality of Life Studies, your front row seat to the global well-being conversation. Join hosts Roger Fernandez-Hervano and Anat Fanti as they explore cutting-edge research and inspiring ideas that are shaping happiness, well-being, and quality of life worldwide.
Hello, Professor Costanza. Such an honor to have you here at the podcast of ISQOLS.
My pleasure.
And thank you for your very, very interesting presentation. So what can you say in general about the idea of nature and human together and how we need to move from GDP to the beyond GDP and a more holistic system?
Well, I think now that we're in the Anthropocene epoch, where the impact of humans on our ecological life support system is massive and getting bigger, the impacts on climate and biodiversity, et cetera. I think we can no longer ignore, that interdependence, our interdependence with the rest of nature. So we have to recognize that we are part of this natural system. We're not separate from it. We can't, we can't just sort of go our own way and ignore our life support system. We're on a spaceship and we're taking apart, the spaceship. So I think that fundamental recognition that we have to look at the whole system at multiple scales, and how the pieces are interconnected over time and space. And also we need to rethink what our ultimate goal is. What are we trying to achieve on this planet, on our spaceship? And I think that there's broad agreement. I think that our goal should be sustainable well-being. The well-being of not only humans but also the rest of the rest of nature. And so once I think we've made that shift in goals and in recognition of what the actual situation is on the planet, that brings out a whole different way of proceeding. And the conventional approach to economics, which is largely just looking at the market, at production and consumption of marketed goods and services, has to be put in this broader context, and we have to recognize that that's not the goal. That can be a means to the end, to the goal, but it's certainly not the goal in and of itself, as it has been conceived recently. So I think that's the main thing that has to change, our fundamental goal, and how we understand what's necessary to achieve that goal.
And this is a huge barrier to moving to a sustainable future for all. What other barriers do you see?
Well, I think the fact that the existing paradigm, the existing approach to what the economy is and what it's for is embedded in so many of our institutions, and we're kind of locked into that system. We're addicted to that system. So it's going to be difficult to change, and simply pointing out, like I just did, the facts and the need for the change in goal is not enough. We've known that, I think, for decades, and we've known the solutions, and we've known that we need to reconceive where we are. So I'm not saying anything new here, but the problem is we haven't made much progress in that direction because we are sort of locked in, addicted to the current system. There are all these positive feedbacks, that are keeping things the way they are, that are difficult to change. But I think there is growing recognition that we do need to change, and I think there's growing recognition or knowledge that we're in the middle of a crisis that may require change, that we're not going to be able to avoid changing the system and not be able to go back to the way it was. I think our challenge is to have something better as an alternative when the door opens, rather than allowing it to collapse into something worse.
Doomsday. Yeah. And saying doomsday, I feel, and probably many people feel, and as you saw the questions in the plenary, a bit powerless in front of those major issues. what would you recommend to scholars, to students, to members of this community?
Well, like I said, I think it's going to take a movement or a movement of movements to make the changes that we need. So I would recommend joining the movement, one of the movements, and building that shared vision and that shared, that critical mass that's going to be necessary to move things. I don't think it's enough to, do individual actions individually without, because the problem is at the system level and all of the reinforcements and the way the system is structured. So we have to change that structure, and that's going to require community action, not just individual action. So learning to work, together more and not as individuals. And I think that's part of the solution after the fact as well, is that we need to have more community engagement, more social capital. Our social capital has been rapidly depleted in order to protect our natural capital. So more community and more focus on well-being is what everyone needs to do.
And except the small numbers of the WEAll governments that are willing to be in the conversation, do you see any changes in other major countries that are willing to move forward with this issue?
I think Canada was the biggest country that was involved in that discussion so far. But like I said, it may take a major collapse of the system, or at least a partial collapse of the system, in order to generate the interest in those. But I think it will also take a change in the governments themselves, and I think that's what the movement can precipitate. If that's in democracies, or at least what we have left of democracies, people can make that change if they come together. So,
if COVID, that was really real, like concrete, did not make such a change, do you think that kind of a more the future that is we actually don't know? Yes, we see the things that are happening, the more floods, but it's less tangible for people. So when COVID happened, there was somewhat of a collaboration around the world. But even though it was very concrete, how do we deal with something that is not concrete yet for people?
Well, I think it will get more concrete as time goes on. And I think COVID was a good example that people can come together and collaborate, when there's a crisis. COVID was a crisis that went away eventually, and it was a very specific kind of crisis. So we knew exactly, what to do and roughly how long we were anticipating that it might take. I think the bigger crisis, that in terms of the ecological crises due to climate change, the financial crisis due to mismanagement of the global economy, the crises of people's sort of awareness that their well-being is not really being addressed. I think the combination of all of those, at some point, it's impossible to predict when and what exactly will happen. But I think that there will be, a much bigger crisis that will, like I said, open the door for these kinds of changes.
Okay.
So I think we need to be ready for that, and not necessarily fear it, but to say, yes, this will probably happen at some point. What do we want? What kind of world do we want? And if we continue to work on that part of it, and have that kind of world ready with a large enough movement, that's ready to sort of go in that direction, then I think that will increase the chances that we can actually get to that world.